take some different stuff now compared to what I took. It seems like a sushi to me. Check this people.
And he then decided, to have this weird idea. It was weird in the 50s to think that I'm going to start a theater company. It was unheard of for a black man, especially. Why do this? So he went to Dokey House. Dokey House was a hub for creatives in the 1950s and 1960s, and he worked there for a while. Dokey House produced the King Kong musical. I don't know if anybody knows about the King Kong musical, which was very popular in England and the US, and launched the careers of Kefa Semenya, Miriam Makeba, Letta Mbuli, Jonas Gwangwa, all the great names. And he worked there for a while, but he felt that, as he was a writer, playwright, director, composer, choreographer, he did it all. So he felt that these people at Dokey House are taking some of my profits. So he said he wanted to be independent, he wanted to start his own company. So he moved from Dokey House and he went to Soweto and started his company at his house actually in Dube, using the back rooms of his house to rehearse and to house actors. So Gibson Kente is known as a father of township theatre, as a father of Soweto theatre. But I think that title kind of doesn't capture the whole essence of his contribution to South African theatre, because most of the actors that he's trained, some of them are still working on television today. If there was no Gibson Kente, I'm not exaggerating, there would be no Brenda Fassie, there'd be no Mbongeni Ngema, Sarafina, and all of that. So he trained all of those people. There were no schools. If you were black and you were interested in the arts, there was no school for you. There was no training, there was no company. So he came up with this crazy idea that I'm going to start a theater company in Soweto. And he didn't write a business plan. Imagine if you'd written a business plan. In a business plan, you'd have to say, how am I going to pay my actors? How am I going to hire space? What am I going to charge people to see the play? So he just went and did it. And in those days, you could do that. I understand here you're being trained students are being trained in the business of the arts, which is absolutely essential for the 20th and the 21st century. But he just went and did it. And his influence, he worked in theater. Some of his theater productions were in SABC. Those days, SABC, there was a channel for blacks in isiZulu, and the channel in, for the Northern Sotho languages, English and Afrikaans. So it was very segregated. But he was the one whose shows, he kind of started he opened the doors, for the people. So we owe him a lot.
I just had to make sure that the mic was on. I'm just going to go off of that thought that, can everybody hear me properly? There's no funny, all right. That he's influenced, Gibson Kente has influenced many generations of black theatre makers, myself included, right? Because you have the theatre makers like the Mbongeni Ngemas. We spoke about Toko Njinga outside as well, etc., etc. sort of started, like you said, losing certain parts of the theatre making timeline for my generation, because you said it was very difficult to find information for you. Imagine how difficult it was for us, or it is for us, right? And I think for me personally, his influence on my work in particular, because I've gotten a formal theatre education in that sense of where I went to university, an institution, and so a lot of the time we don't get access unless we're really looking for it. Finding, where do I find Gibson Gender's plays? Where do I find, Mashima Ponya's plays? For easy access for me to then study their works, it's not that easy, right? Imagine now, when you're not in an institution, and let's say that you're part of a community theatre group, where do you find access to that stuff? So I think we then find that inspiration, at least in the form of how, or the rules that community theatres have adopted in making their work. So I think that's the sort of access that I've gotten into it, more specifically ideas around poor theatre and characterization, right, that fall outside of the classical realm of making theatre, which is where the theatre makers, that we never put a name and give credit to those who did it before us, right? We try and always link it to something that the institutions have taught us, but never put a name to it. So I just want to highlight that reverence, that not just the father of township theatre, but the father of I would say one of the fathers of South African theatre, because he infiltrates in many, many parts of the theatre making process. We just haven't said it out loud. So that's at least my take on it at the moment.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for that. I think that the biggest mistake we can make as creative people is to say, this was produced in Soweto, however many years ago. It has nothing to do with my life, But I think that history is just so important, to know the history of South Africa. And it doesn't matter who tells it. I mean, whether you live in Soweto or you live in Sandton, or Khayelitsha, or in Soweto, or whatever. But what type of art can you make that will resonate, in the world, but still say something unique, about your culture? You think of a movie like Marty Supreme, with Timothy Chalamet. It's very much a modern story, but it still resonates, culturally and within that movement. So I'm glad that you acknowledge that the influence of Gibson Kente is there in memory, because memories are passed down, generationally. So we may not know it, but the stories that our parents tell us, the stories that we tell among ourselves as friends, and or within families, uncles, and those are really important stories, and it's a passing on of memories that makes us who we are.
You speak a lot in the book about memory, and you've used a lot of references to memory work and theatre itself as a memory, and that obviously once you leave the theatre, all you have is a memory of it, but you've archived the theatre as well, so it's like a permanent memory. Can you speak a little bit about how that influenced your research, and how you feel it comes across when theatre performances are produced now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing about a theatre performance is that no show will ever be the same. You can have a recording of a performance and watch the recording, but if you go into a theatre, the actors will do something slightly different every time. The cues, somebody will miss the cues, somebody will come in a little bit faster, slower. So and also with theatre is that the audience feedback, is immediate. So you get to really engage with the audience on a sort of like minute by minute, basis. So it's something in a way that is fleeting. but it's also something that stays in the memory, you know. I mean, I still remember those shows that I saw.
Your own studio, your own, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we have any Tyler Perrys, you know? There he is. Oh, he's wearing a cap anyway.
The play is on from the 8th of May next month up until the 30th of May, and it's going to be quite something. I think it also pays homage because, like I said, we've found a lot of inspiration from these men. So, yeah, until the 30th of May at the Baxter.